Lalita, we
Hello.
are live now. You can please start.
A very good afternoon to one and all. I, Lalita Singh, on behalf of Jabalpur Incubation Center, welcomes you all.
Yeah,
So
Lalit.
today
Hello.
we are here with, yes, sir. Sir, shall we start now? Hello.
Sashikant sir, we are live now.
So we are live.
Yes, Lalita, you can please start.
Okay. So today we are here with a new session and with a new topic that is idea validation. अगर आप अपना बिजनेस शुरू करना चाहते हैं या अपना स्टार्टअप शुरू करना चाहते हैं तो सबसे
Yeah,
पहले
Minda Little
इम्पोर्टेंट होता है
I
अपना
know what
एक
to do.
बेस्ट आइडिया
Libre to
चूज
Pudia
करना।
video.
तो ये आइडिया अल्टीमेटली आप इस आइडिया पे अपना काफ़ी सारा टाइम इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो इट इज़ बेटर टू चूज अ बेटर आइडिया दैट कैन बी सूटेबल फॉर योर मार्केट and for everything. So for that, today we are going to have a session with our prominent guest and speaker who is a very experienced in the field of startup. So I would like to introduce our guest, Mr. Shashikant Ramakrishnan sir, who is a startup advisor. Welcome, sir. Sir, am I audible to you? Hello.
Hello.
Lalit is there?
Hello. Lalit
Yes,
is
I
there?
am audible to you. Yes, sir. This is
I'm
Lalita.
not able to scroll the slide, madam. I uploaded the file.
Sorry, sir.
I think you're not
I
given me
think
the.
you're not given me
I've
the.
uploaded the file.
I've
I'm not able to
uploaded the
scroll the
file.
slide.
To scroll the slide.
Okay, sir.
We are doing so, sir. You can start the session.
Yeah, please. That's what.
Yeah,
Okay.
please. That's what.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So, very
first
good
of all, I
morning.
would
Good
like to
afternoon to
Very good
welcome
everyone.
you,
morning.
sir.
Good afternoon to.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can
Sorry.
start.
You can start.
Okay.
Yes.
So, first of all, I would like to welcome you, sir. Welcome to our session. And thank you for giving up your time. Before we start our session, I would like to give your top of the piece of your advice to our first time entrepreneurs who is having some hurdles to find a proper idea for them.
Yeah. Okay. So this presentation.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
You can continue.
Okay. Yeah. Very good afternoon to everyone. So this presentation is going to be about
Yeah.
startup
Very good
idea
afternoon to
validation.
everyone. So this startup idea
Sir,
validation.
Yeah.
your voice is echoing. Can you
Yeah.
please turn off one of your window?
Yeah. So this presentation is going to be about startup validation. So I will take you through the different ways you can validate your idea, and at the end of the session, probably we'll have a 15 to 20 minute of a question answer session where I can clarify to wanapreneur or entrepreneurs right now who would like to know how we need to go about doing startup validation. Okay. Yeah. To the next slide, madam. So this slide basically looks at a Titanic ship which uh, facing the uh, iceberg, right? So there are hidden obstacles, there are open obstacles, there are hidden gold mine. There is also possibility of a open gold mine. So when before you start up your ideas or before you get into your startup idea, you need to know what are the obstacles that might lie in front of you. You might also need to know what are the gold mines that are in front of you and what are the gold mines or obstacles that are hidden from you. So it's very important to view this. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Oh, Shashikant sir,
Yeah.
if it is possible for you, can we continue it in a little bit English so our viewers can
English?
understand more easily? Yes, sir.
English or Hindi?
So mix, Hindi English mix.
Okay, sure. I can do that. I'm not very, I mean,
Oh,
okay. Normally I do presentation in English only. Okay, ठीक है, no problem. Okay, so over to the next
No,
slide.
actually, most there are more of
Yeah.
tier 2 city.
No, no,
So
yeah, that's okay. No problem. It's okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So if you come to this slide, we are talking about responsive to change, right? So it says changes are happening all around us, and we need to be prepared. So it's not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. So इसका मतलब ये है कि हमें change से डरना नहीं चाहिए, okay? And जो कोई change से मतलब fast adjust कर पाएंगे, वही will be the winner at the end of the day. So it's important how fast you're able to respond to change. चाहे वो COVID-1 हो या COVID-2 हो या COVID-3 हो. That's very, very important. So changes are already happening and this has been there for last 20-30 years. But अभी भी changes हो रहे हैं and especially after the COVID, अभी changes बहुत जल्दी से हो रही है. मतलब जो change जो 20 साल या 10 साल में होता था, अभी एक साल में changes हो रहे हैं. Okay. So next slide, please.
I think there might an issue. I'll check first.
I think this is StreamYard is taking a lot of bandwidth. That's why it's slow.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't have this problem in Teams or Google or Zoho Meets. I keep doing
Yeah,
every day.
right,
Right?
sir. So just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, please, no problem.
Go slide.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm able to do it. Sorry. Thank you very much. I'm able to do it right now. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So in this slide, इस slide में हम ये बात कर रहे हैं कि मतलब how the technology has evolved over the last 30 years. तो शुरुआत में आप देखेंगे तो अर्ली 90s और इन इंडिया में अर्ली 90s बट अब्रॉड में अर्ली 80s देयर इज टू बी सेपरेट कोर LOB solution. LOB solution मतलब line of business solution. So we used to have accounting application, payroll application, operations application. They're all separate applications. They never used to be talked. There no interaction, no interconnectivity. मतलब सारे applications अलग अलग थे, सारे software अलग अलग थे, कोई interact नहीं करते थे अपने अपने आप से, right? And from there we came to what is called the intranet. Intranet is nothing but ERP within the company where your functional modules like sales, marketing, operations, finance, everything start interacting with each other. And then from intranet, we went to the next stage called the extranet, where along with the ERP, you also talk to the customers ERP, you talk to the suppliers ERP, you talk to the partners ERP. That is extranet. And from the extranet, we have now evolved to a stage which is called the internet, where we are able to chat with different companies, we are able to exchange our ideas with different companies, we are able to do e-commerce through internet. So this is a slide which I had got from IBM way back in early 2000, and see how they have predicted the way the technology will move. And exactly this is how the technology has moved in the last 30, 40, 50 years. From 1980s, when you have different applications, to now where everything is on the internet. Now, going forward, what will happen? Your consumer devices, your cars, your trains, your buses, your airports, your railway stations, your bus stations, everything will get connected on internet. So from here, you will be able to track who's doing what on the internet. And this has also got a downside. For example, tomorrow, if China wants to start a war, they can shut down Indian power plants. India wants to start a war, it can shut down Pakistan power plants, right? So those are the kind of possibilities that we will see, right? It's very important when you do a startup validation, you must know how the technology has evolved in the last 20, 30, 40 years, right? Coming to the next slide, we're talking about startup definition here. So there are different definitions, Wikipedia, you go to Google search, you go to many forums, India forum, US forum, Israeli forum. The definitions are different. What is a startup? It's an entrepreneur who tries to develop and validate a scalable business model. And what is entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship refers to all new businesses, including self-employment and businesses. And startups refers to a new business that intend to grow large beyond the solo founder. So there are various definitions of startup. Now, if I were to summarize, what is a startup? Startup is a young company founded by one or more entrepreneurs to develop a unique product or service. So unique product or service, that's very important, and bring it to market. By its nature, the typical startup tends to be a shoestring operation with initial funding from the founders or the families and friends. The term startup refers to a company in the first stage of operations. So the unique thing about a startup is something which is unique, something which is disruptive, something which is scalable, and something which normally involves technology. So that's what is startup. Suppose you're buying sabji from mandi and then selling it to retailers. That is not a startup. If you're buying cars from Ford India or Hyundai and then selling it, that's not a startup. You're opening a mobile repair shop. That's not a startup. Startup is where you use technology, where you're using a disruptive force into play, where you're able to scale up the business overnight based on funding, based on your business model. Sorry, the slide is a bit slow. Okay. Now, coming to when normally people kickstart a startup, right? When they have a compelling idea. Okay, that's the main thing, right? But compelling idea alone is not enough. You need to have financial support. You need to have venture funding. You need to have entrepreneurship readiness. Are you ready for entrepreneurship? And obviously, advisors have to be there to help you, guide you through different processes in the company, different business models, different tractions in the market, marketing, etc. And finally, you need a strategic business plan.
Definitely, Shashikant it's been, and one more thing that I would like to add on behalf of Shashikant, that definitely the startup idea has to be a scalable idea. The business has to be a scalable idea. And as Shashikant mentioned, it has to be an innovative one. So both a blend of these two will definitely make, a startup something that is actually expected from a normal business and differentiating it from a startup. Please, definitely.
Thank you very much for your input, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now if you look at what is a startup idea. So it is important to know what is a startup idea. Okay. So first and foremost, it has to be very unique, which means it has to be different from what is available in the market. It has to be different from what is available with other companies, other industries, etc. Normally, not necessarily, but this is the most unique factor. If you have this, if your uniqueness is that you're unique, then your ability to get funding, your ability to get traction in the market, your ability to get consumers, your ability to get customers, they become extraordinary for you. It'll be very easy for you. So if you, okay, we had some incubation meetings a couple of weeks back with Jabalpur, and that's where I was able to easily tell when we were evaluating the startup where they had a disruptive idea. I could easily tell, that you will definitely get funding from the investors. There's no problem at all. But if your idea is not unique, you will not get funding. So that's the most important, that it has to be unique. Second is compelling. So when I say compelling, is it solving a compelling business problem? Is it solving a compelling, is it giving a very compelling solution? Which means, for example, let's say, I'm just giving you a very hypothetical example. Can you build a charger which picks up air and converts into a charge? That's a compelling business model, right? Suppose you have a technology inside your cell phone which can convert carbon dioxide into charge for the phone and then operate it for next 8 hours. Nothing like it, right? Or can you convert water into a cell charge? So these are compelling business ideas which can definitely help you build a startup. Next is problem solving. As I told you, you have to solve the problem of either a consumer or a corporate enterprise or a social cause, right? There has to be some problem that you're trying to solve. Only then it becomes a startup idea. Then scalability. As sir said, it's very important that you're able to scale, right? Today you're doing business with 10 customers. Tomorrow you should do it with 100. Day after tomorrow you should do with 1,000. Similarly, your consumers, you might start with 30 consumers in the first month. Second month, it should go up to 300. And third month, it should go up to 3,000. And then slowly. And unless and until you get 1 lakh consumers, you will not see the traction from the investor. Means investor will talk to you once you have 1 lakh consumers on your platform, or 100 small and medium enterprises, or probably 10 or 20 large enterprises in your portfolio. So when a B2B has got a 10 large enterprise customers, or a B2B has got a 100 small and medium enterprise, or a B2C has got 1 lakh consumers regularly buying or having a traction on the e-commerce portal or a marketplace, that is when you are going to achieve scalability. Then coming to innovativeness. Now, innovativeness is different from uniqueness. See, when I say innovative, can we change the way we are working? Can we, for example, we have a business model where farmers have to go through brokers, have to go through distributors, have to go through truckers, and then finally the product comes to the consumer. Can we change this model? That changing the model is called the innovativeness. Are you able to make a innovation into the model? So invention is different from innovation. Invention is finding something new. Innovation is an existing thing, you're making it look different. So that's what is innovative. Now, revenue generation. A lot of startups, they get into business, but they still don't see the light of the day, which means they don't see revenue coming in. So whether it is a B2B, whether it is a B2C, whether it is a B2B to B2C, you still need to have revenue unless and until you are in for a social cause. Now, even if you are in a social cause, you need to generate revenue that will fund your costs, or you need to get funding from your, uh, uh, you know, or agencies, funding from development funds, funding from charity organizations, corporate social response, CSR funds from corporates. So those have to come. So even if it is social startup, you should be able to generate funds, which is equivalent to generating revenue. Believe me, I can generate revenue very easily today, but if I have to go and ask somebody for funding for my social startup, it's the most difficult thing to do, right? So your revenue generation can be either revenue for your company or funds for your social cause. Then coming to monetizability. For example, you have consumers coming onto your platform, you have corporate enterprises coming onto your platform. Are you able to convert that into sizable revenue? Initially, you might do a free model, like you might give free access to portal, you might give free access to product, but over a period of time, can you make it subscribable where people are going to pay for subscription? For example, they might pay 1 rupee, they might pay 10 rupee, they might pay 100 rupee. Some enterprise might pay $10 per user per month for a CRM subscription. So that's very important. Monetizability, right? And revenue generation and monetizability are almost same, but it varies. Like for example, if you're in a B2B company, you go out and try and get revenues from the customers. When I say monetizability is primarily meant for B2B or B2C customers, where you're trying to change your free subscription into a paid subscription on the online model, right? And then job creating. Yeah, that's very important, right? You can't be a single man advisor like me and then say I'm a big startup. No, you need to create jobs for people. You need to create, if I'm an advisor and I want to become a real big startup, I need to create mini advisor under me. Similarly, when you are starting a startup, you need to provide employment to the workers, provide employment to software engineers, provide employment to managers. That's what is one of the main requirement for a startup, right? Socio-economic, political, environmental benefiting. Yeah, that's what I told you, right? It can be social cause, it can be economic cause. For example, you might have a new Paytm kind of a model, or political, you might like to bring people onto a forum where they're able to interact with politicians. You might bring up a portal which is caring for the green environment, or finally, you might even take a social cause where, for example, you might want to tell people, okay, why are you divided on religious basis? Why don't you look at it as a social cause, right? So those kind of things. Today we are finding people polarized in India, right? We're talking about hijab, we are talking about saffron, right? What is the need for all this in the education? So those are the social causes that you need to bring it up. So if you bring up a startup which is addressing these kind of social causes, obviously it actually becomes a valid startup idea. And then value creation. Okay, so whenever you start a startup, whenever you have an idea, it's very important that you create value for different stakeholders. So value for the consumer, value for the corporate enterprises, value for the shareholder, value for the employees, value for the director. If there is no value creation for any of these entities or stakeholders that I'm mentioning, then it's impossible for your startup to really flourish or scale in the long term. So value creation. So while I said uniqueness is the most important factor to get funding, value creation is the most important factor for your startup to remain sustained, to survive, to sustain, to scale. Very important, right? So this slide talks about ideation, idea sculpting, and conceptualization. So now let's go to the next slide.
Definitely, these are
Okay.
some very important points, Shashikantji, that you have discussed. And definitely, we can see so many startups until and unless we have an idea that is giving some kind of value to the people, the stakeholders, for both the people who are using it and the other end who's generating the revenue, for both the entities, for all the entities who are involved. When we are able to give some kind of value, that that is something that will in the long term will have in the sustainability of the startup. So it has been, very valid points that our startups should learn out of this session. Great. Please.
Thank you very for your inputs. Okay, now coming to this most important thing is, why do a startup idea validation, right? A lot of people ask me, why do we need to validate? Let's go into the market, let's try the idea, let it forget it, we'll see later. But why do we need to do a startup idea validation? First and foremost, you need to check what are the unmitigable risks. For example, if you were to start a startup bike taxi in, let's say, um, a area which is very conservative about women. Okay, I'm not naming any religion, or I'm not naming any community. Let's say you want to start a bike taxi in an area where people are very conservative, right? So, do you think if the bike is driven by a boy, will a girl sit behind him? No, definitely not, right? Okay, one. Second, how safe is a bike taxi for a girl in today's India's situation? Not only India, anywhere you go to, people say US is safe. I don't believe so. US is as bad as in India. They are covering
Yes.
it up. They're not showing it. That's all. But US or Europe is as bad in India. You go check YouTube. You go and check the serial killer cases. There are more serial killers in US than in India, right? So everywhere is unsafe. So is a bike taxi safe for a woman? So you need to mitigate that risk. So these are some unmitigable risks which you need to know, right? Now, what is other unmitigable risk? Like, for example, are you having a startup in a earthquake pro zone, right? If you're, let's say, I'm just giving an example. For example, Chandigarh, let's say it's an earthquake prone area, and if your complete all your startup servers are located there, and one day when Chandigarh has an earthquake and your uh, project come crashing, so that's very important, right? So you need. So this is some of the risks in a business. So similarly, when you're doing a startup, you must see, okay, should I start it in Chandigarh? Is it safe there? Will my business get affected? So you need to do all those kind of unmitigable risks. You need to understand scalability, right? You must know whether your startup will scale or not. For example, somebody came to me the other day and said they building a startup, for specific category of professors, which means a professor who wants to learn more about psychology. So that's a very niche area. See, first of all, education is a narrow segment. I mean, compared to the universe, right? You have what, 30, 40 industry segments. Education is very narrow. In education, you're coming to university education, that itself is further narrowing down. And then from university education, you're coming to professors, that is further narrowing down. And then in professors, you're saying you're talking about psychology professors alone, you will break a professor, you will make a startup. So is it scalable? I don't think so, right? So unless until you're able to build a psychology portal across the world for everybody, then it's scalable. You can't make a psychology portal only for professor of psychology, and that too for India or maybe few countries, right? That's not scalable. Okay. Then coming to market acceptance. So why do you have to do a startup idea from this angle? You need to know whether your price is acceptable in the market or not. Will customer pay 100 rupees for a battery, or will he pay 1000 rupees for a cell battery, or will he pay 10,000 rupees for a cell battery? So if you look at Nokia, you look at Samsung, you look at Apple, they have phones in all the ranges. The other day,
Yes.
I was thinking of buying a phone for my parents, right? And my parents are 70 years and 80 years old. My mother is 70, my father is around 80 years old. So they are very clear they don't want to use smartphone, but I'm then pressurizing them to use smartphone. And they are very clear. They said, if you bring a phone worth 20,000 or 40,000 rupees, we'll give it back to you. Go give it to your wife or give it to your friends or your customers, but we will not take it. They're very clear. Okay, so then what do I do? So I need to buy a cheap phone. So I went to the net and checked what are the best smartphone available. So Samsung smartphone is available at 5,000 rupees. Then next is at 5,000, 7,000, 9,000, 10,000, 15,000. So at every range you have a Samsung phone. Why have they created that? Because there are
Hello. I think there is some issue with Shrikant's voice over here, but definitely Shrikant has been quoting a wonderful example. When we are talking about the startup validation, these are some of the risk, the scalability, everything we need to check. Shrikant, am I audible to you? Hello. I think Shrikant is not audible right now. There is some internet disconnection. Hello, Shrikant. Okay, let's move till we have Shrikant back with us because he was really quoting something very important. why are these companies, why are these giants, creating their products in all the segments, whether it is something of range of 5,000, then 15,000, 20,000, because they want customers of all, you know, for all kind of customers, they should be using their cell phones. Once they'll have, the next, when they can reach up to the next level, definitely, if I'm a Samsung user and I really I love the way it works, the next time when I'm going to have the new phone, I would obviously look forward that I have been very handy with Samsung only. So that's something, it creates a brand value in the mind of the people, that I'm going to have the same kind of people using iPhone. When they have got new versions, the next phone they are going to purchase is definitely the iPhone, because they say I'm very handy with it. I really, a kind of brand value has been established. So definitely, when the startups are looking forward for the idea validation, and when we see it in another terms, see, before going to the market, we must know whether it is possible for us or not, whether it will be possible for our startup idea to actually survive in the market or not. Because once we start executing, we start putting our time and energy into it, and suddenly we feel or we see that we are not actually able to, we don't see a future of it, then it becomes very difficult to go back, pivot your model or pivot your business completely. So that's why it is that so important for startups who are actually doing this to have an idea validation. Get your idea validated. It is as simple like in electronics and most of the industries, whether it is mechanical industry. Nowadays, what we have is for machineries, we have simulation tools. Simulation is basically creating a virtual environment. Just as we know, what we do is, if we want to study something about Earth, we have a simulated model of it that is called as the globe. So on globe, we can perform most of the experiments, because on real time basis, it will be very difficult to, perform an experiment right on the earth. So that becomes something ki we are using those simulation tools actually to, perform experimentation. And once the experimentations are successful, we can actually get them to the real world, because it saves
Sudhanshu
cost.
sir,
Yeah. So,
first of all, thank you so much for joining us and continuing the presentation and the session. I would like to ask one question about this idea validation. When it comes to idea validation, people bring their idea randomly from somewhere and execute it, and they don't do target their market research. They don't research their targeted market. So I would like to ask you about this how important is researching this target market for them, because people most often they don't do this research.
nahin, definitely, Lalita, it's definitely a wonderful question. Actually, when we comes to different stages of the startup, Shrikant was also discussing. I must say he must have been discussed this in the session also. These are the first three stages. When we just have an idea, then we have customer. We have recognized our customers. It becomes our second stage, and third becomes the idea validation stage. So
Yeah.
these are the first three important steps. Almost in most of the cases, it comes under, one shed, because first having an idea where you are solving a problem, then recognizing, actually, if I'll solve this problem, who are going to be my customer, who is actually
Yeah.
going to pay for this, because money is the blood of the business.
Yes.
Until and unless the revenues, the money keep flowing into the business is not going to survive. Shrikant was very rightly mentioning कि even if we have an idea where actually the startup, where actually that is a very social, even if it is solving a social problem, for solving a social problem also we need funds. So money, always the blood of the business, the revenues, until and unless they are going to flow into the system is never going to survive. So It becomes as important. Come up with a good idea. Your idea is solving a set of problem. The problem that you are addressing, then we find out in customer discovery state who is going to actually pay for it. Are we
Yes.
solving a real problem? And then, is this idea feasible? When we are validating the idea ki, oh, okay, this is something that we actually, in that stage only, when we come up with the prototypes, we actually come up with the POCs. When we try to just the concept part, we find it out, we create prototypes, and then we are actually confirmed that yes, this idea can survive in the market, people are going to pay for it. So these preliminary steps are very important, because see, just as what I was talking about, we have for any kind of electronics machinery, or for any kind of even mechanical machineries tools, for automobiles, everything, now we have the simulation softwares. What these softwares do, they create a virtual environment. I'll give a very simple example of globe. You want to study anything, so for thousands of kilometers, you have inches or centimeters of space. So we are experimenting on it, because experimenting on those tools is far is it's lot cheaper than actually performing the experiment in the real world. So same case with the startups also. Instead of going out and then starting your business, putting huge chunk of money into it, your time, your energy, everything, and suddenly you realize that, because this is the perception that most of the startups have, that whatever, that when you come up with an idea, you most of the time you they think that this is the right problem that I am solving, my idea can always scale like anything. But you need to come up to the customer, you need to come up to the end users, ask them whether they really want this kind of solution or not. Because I might be thinking that this is the best solution I can put forward, might be better solutions might be available, or people may not like it. So in those scenarios, just validating your, getting your customer, knowing your customers, and then validating your idea in that terms, people really need this kind of a solution, people are ready to pay for this solution, then I should move forward it. Because once I am innovative enough, I have n number of opportunities. And if somebody comes, most of the time we see the same organization that is producing one of the innovative products comes up with, this is we have seen with our startups. The same organization is coming up with n number of products which are useful enough. So your idea keeps coming to your mind, but it becomes very important when you are sticking to any kind of idea, you are validating it, you are letting everybody know that this is really going to work in the future, and this is something people are ready to pay. Then only you are putting your energy, your efforts, everything into it. Otherwise, you always have an option, you can pivot up your the way you are doing it, you also pivot up your business also. So that in that fashion, it becomes very important for everyone to have to validate your idea. We have been emphasizing always, the startup community has always been emphasizing so much on first validating your idea. Because until and unless you have validated it, it becomes very difficult to get back. You have already put in a lot of money, a lot of your efforts into it. So in that fashion, it is very important for everyone to validate it. It normally happens that startups skip these stages. They come up with an idea, they think people really need it. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you can continue.
So actually, most of the time, we see startups
Hello, uh, Granshu, sir, am I audible to you? Hello. Okay. Hello, Granshu, sir. Akash, can you please check once?
Yes, actually, I guess the Wi-Fi is the problem.
So I guess there might some problem over here. So I think we have to end our session over here itself. So I almost we have covered all of the topic about how we can validate our idea. Like we have to first go to the customer, check the market acceptance and all. So I think for the next time till we meet next, we can try, we will come up with new topics. So thank you very much, and thank you so much Akash for having here. Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Lita.
much.